Hello, everybody. It's Alessandro from Innovate with Impact, hashtag small relief. I'm here today with Urs Briner. Hey, Urs, how's it going?
Hey, Alessandro. I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Listen, it's so great that you took time on such short notice to meet with me. If you don't mind, before we get started, could you quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. So hello, everybody. My name is Urs Briner, as Alessandro already mentioned. I'm the head of portfolio success at Investiere. For those who don't know Investiere, we are a venture capital company, and I'm basically helping all the companies, the startups we have in our portfolio once we did the financing for them, until we hopefully bring them to success. And before I was working with IBM and PwC in consulting for the last 25 years. At the end, I was running Europe for IBM Consulting. So I had a P&L of a pretty significant size, and I went through several crises before, which helps me now a bit handling this crisis with the startups.
So, I mean, this is super interesting for me, at least, because I work with a lot of startups and small businesses. And so, how has this current crisis impacted you, and how has it impacted the companies that you're working with, and what are you doing about it?
Well, first of all, it hit me when I was in Spain. So I didn't have a flight back. I had 8 canceled flights until I was able to come back to Switzerland. So I had a little bit of a personal challenge to get back to Switzerland. But I think we very quickly switched the mode. It was good that we have been all connected ever since. It was helpful that, the digitization in our business was actually, one of our key reasons why we are where we are. So we were able to handle the majority of the processes actually from home. And then, the most important things when you're in a crisis is to handle the burning issues, the burning platforms. So we very quickly organized webinars with legal firms, how to organize from a legal standpoint. We organized webinars, how to do sales in this new environment. Is this any possible? We organized webinars with the government, with the banks, how to make sure that the loan facilities get used, so liquidity is not becoming an issue for the companies. And it was really hands down. I think by now, after these couple of weeks, we are in the next phase, which is for me a sort of a divide. Now the companies need to think about what does it mean for the company for the longer run. So for the next 6 months, next 12 months, how do I need to set up myself? How do we need to restructure the offering such that it is becoming relevant again? So new questions come up, and we switched the mode. We are working more in a, let's say, workshop type basis with the companies to explore these activities, to see how we can help, to also brainstorm, be sparring partners. That's basically what we do right now. Besides, obviously, still helping them doing the most important things, which is being relevant with clients and getting into clients. And one of the really key message I want to give away here is actually in these days when you're not physically connected, when you're not working in companies, when your schedule is not full of meetings, I think it's actually quite easy to reach out to clients and prospects. And it was actually never easier than these days to unlock some of the partnerships, some of the client relations we always wanted to unlock for our startups, because people are accessible, they are at home, they listen, they have time. So one of the key messages really get yourself on the phone, speak with clients, speak with prospects, show empathy, of course, but listen to them and build trust through just a relationship conversation, not a sales conversation. And I think it's very important to do this these days, because it will pay off later on. That's for sure.
What you just said is super powerful, and I really appreciate that you're bringing this point up, because throughout all the interviews that I have done and all the startups that I have talked to and all the companies that I've been talking to, I see definitely this as a very common denominator. There's almost like a divide, right? So there's some people who just kind of lean back and say, okay, I want to see what's going to happen. I'll just take myself out of the game and I'll observe it. And there are other companies, and especially small ones right now, that are going straight into the game, and they're saying, okay, what do I need to do to not only survive this, but also thrive? And it's also a key advice that I always give, which is you have to right now position yourself to be successful in the long run. Now is the time to take, exactly like you said, pick up the phone, talk to these companies, and get yourself in front of them so that you can keep hitting the ground running as you're moving forward.
Yeah. Exactly right. And I mean, we have seen, I mean, this crisis is special, yeah, because it came very quick, it is global, and we are not able to work in the old, how we worked in the old days. So we can't have meetings in the usual sense. So that's why it is special. But on the other hand, it's also just a crisis. So, I mean, we had crises before, and there are some common denominators where you can learn from and what you should do or not do. But one thing which is never wrong is to stay in contact with your clients. I mean, because to say it on the other way, yeah, if you lose the clients now, to get them back probably takes 10 times more efforts in 6 to 12 months. So thinking about retention strategies of pricing, offerings, building relationships, everything is really, really critical these days, and will pay off later when you do it right. That's for sure.
I could not agree more, and I think this is extremely valuable information. In terms of startups or businesses working with you or getting in touch with you, what do you have any advice there? What should businesses do right now, especially when it comes to building up or getting advice or taking the next steps? What would you recommend them to do?
Well, I don't think there is a one-fits-all solution. First of all, every company is different, and I think every company has to think what this crisis means for them. And I think there are like 3 different profiles which I would differentiate. There is profile number 1, which is a company that benefits from the crisis, yeah, because there are also the winners. So to take an example, Beekeeper, a great company, great startup, have a great platform to reach out to blue-collar worker and workers that are not connected on laptops. It's the perfect time to use Beekeeper at the moment with home office related staff, with hospitals which have to shift their plans and do things differently. So for Beekeeper, this time is the time to go and sell like hell. Now that's type 1. Type 2 is the company which has a bit of a dip. They will recover. You have to get your burn rate down, but temporarily only, but you will get back into it. You might slightly adjust your offering, but in principle it's still relevant. And you will do good business and growth in the future. And for these companies, I think it's more of a sort of a tactical behavior, what you have to do, how long does the crisis go, and prepare yourself so you're ready when it goes up again. Good example in our portfolio is Goodwall. It's a great company. It's a bit of a Facebook for students globally. And they basically prepare themselves for being ready when the big unemployment wave is coming, because it will come. And they prepare themselves such that when unemployment comes for the youth, they are prepared to be basically the go-to platform. And that's a typical way how you can reposition yourself as a company. And then there is type 3, which is severely impacted, where the offering is actually either not there yet from an offering development point of view, or it's not that relevant. Yeah, it's just on the surface of the let's say buying buying priorities of clients. And for these companies, the time is going to be really tough because it's also not going to change when the crisis is over, because companies and individuals still don't have money to basically spend for these sort of products and services. You know, think about travel, think about, you know, leisure stuff, that sort of things, especially when it's going global, probably not in Switzerland because we have enough money to probably overcome that. But if you want to go outside, many you know, companies and individuals are severely hit by it and can't afford to travel anymore. So for these companies, it's going to be really, really tough, and you have to do, you know, you have to get your costs down. That's for sure, because it will last, and you have to make sure you get your liquidity management in proper shape, and you have to think about where and how I can do actually the same type of business with, you know, a third of the costs, and you know, that's by far the most difficult, let's say, cases we have, and many of these cases are about to reposition themselves as well. But the question is then, for that you need additional investments. Do you have that? You need more time, you know. So there is a lot of skin in the game that is needed by investors, by the management team in all three types, but especially for type 3, I think the time is going to be really, really tough.
No, absolutely. It's, you know, it's a very interesting point. And, you know, again, I think it's really essential what you're talking about also with the three different, you know, kind of positionings that you see. And, you know, when I look at, I know quite a lot of startups that are in the third position that you mentioned. And for them, it's definitely required that they are extremely creative at this point and that they bring out entirely new solutions. I think the key challenge is not only to be creative, right? The key challenge is also, well, let's say we are creative right now, we're bringing out something new. How long is that actually going to last? Is it still part of our core DNA? Because nobody quite knows yet how long we're going to be in this situation. Yes, of course, they're talking about loosening and all that, but we don't know how long this extraordinary situation is going to last. And I think that is adding an element of uncertainty for sure.
Yes, uncertainty, opportunity. I mean, if you look at the financial crisis, 2008-9, some of the greatest companies we have now have developed out of that crisis. So there will be new opportunities for sure. The world is not going to look the same after this coronavirus. That's for sure. We are going to hug each other not that much anymore, but also we are going to work together very differently. And I think the role of digitization, of you know, electronical flow of information is becoming more and more important, even more than we thought before the crisis. But I also think, I mean, I like the word creativity, and that's absolutely true, and it's essential. I think, you know, I always say you need three things to be a really good company. You need a good strategy, you need a good leadership, and you need to be constantly creative in reinventing yourself, but also in letting the people around you growing, such that the ideas can actually, you know, multiply. So in that sense, yes. But also, I mean, we shouldn't forget, startups have some further levers. Good startups have a good group of investors that can help. Good startups have boards that can help and are often very experienced. And you should reach out to these you know, people and individuals to ask for help. And you should have a plan. You know, who am I going to ask for help for this, for that, for this client introduction, for, you know, helping me finding that agency that can do the work for half of the cost or whatever. And I do not see the startups reaching out to the outside world sufficiently to ask for help. And I think that's a fundamental mistake. And I think, you know, if there is one message that should come out of this, is also that actually the people that have invested into startups, they are very often, if not always, very keen to help these startups. And okay, they might not be in the core of the technology that the startup is developing, but some of them are really experienced leaders and have relationships and can help unlocking connections. And I think that is something startups should do more, and should actually. I always said in my business, I'm throwing 20 balls, and if 3 get landed somewhere, then actually I'm successful. But if I'm not starting to throw balls and nobody's catching one, then then it's all on me.
Absolutely.
And I think that's not how it should be.
Absolutely. This is super essential. And, this is definitely one of the key messages that I will definitely take away from this interview. And it's super interesting that you're saying this, because it's a topic that keeps coming up. Now is not the time for kind of like this modesty. Oh, I'm not going to ask for any help, or I'm not going to reach out. No, right now is the time. And what I keep seeing is also this common denominator of this kind of like, you have this David and Goliath situation, right? You have the large corporations and you have the small startups. And to the point that you brought up in the very beginning of the conversation, the large organizations today are often struggling also. And they, if as a startup you go out to them and you say, what, if there's one thing that I have is creativity, and all the points that you brought up earlier, they will welcome you in and they will actually start brainstorming with you, and they will create entirely new relationships. So yeah,
that's
absolutely.
for sure. Yes, I mean the transformational developments will hit the large corporates. They will need to do things very differently, and if you have a relevant offering for them, I think there was never a better time to get into it. When I worked with IBM in the financial crisis in 10 years ago, I mean we were very deliberate, carving out offerings that are relevant for the corporates we served, and we went into them and we just helped them, and we were not adamant about terms and conditions, because it's about the trust that you build and the relevance of your products and service offerings, and the rest comes afterwards. But once you have made yourself valuable at a company and they have received something from you, they will not, you will stick with their client for a long time afterwards. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You gave so much valuable information. I think we are in very good shape with this interview. Thank you so much. Maybe
Sure.
one last fun question to ask. It's a question that I like to ask because I think about it a lot myself. What's the first thing that you will do once you get out of this lockdown situation?
Well, I hope the lockdown is going to take place in Europe, and then I'm going back to Spain because I have a bit of homework to do there. And I have to say, we are very thankful that we can still move ourselves outside buildings and so on, because in Spain that's not the case. And given that I have worked there for 5 years and lived there even longer, my beliefs, wishes, and my hope is that Europe is going to get recovered as one, and we can travel again. And I hope that especially the Spanish people that are very close to me will get a very good comeback from this situation, which is very difficult for them.
I hope so too. In the end, family, friends, and of course our health is all we have. And I think that's the number one key point, that I really hope that this will all be resolved very soon, and that obviously everybody out there is safe and healthy. So and in that regard, I once again agree with you. We have a lot to be grateful for, especially living here in Switzerland. There's places where it's definitely a lot worse, and so I think it's important to remind ourselves of this, that we have this life and we can do a lot of positive things in it. And so for that, Urs, I'm going to be entirely and eternally grateful to you for taking this time and talking to me and sharing all this valuable advice. And my wish and hope is that once all of this is done, that you and I will get to meet up in person, not only on Zoom.
Yes, excellent. Looking forward to that.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you, Alessandro.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
See you.
Bye.
Ciao.